So, Bill, we were just coming on here. You said something about you were on a little Zoom date to kick us off.
Well, I don't want to zoom and tell, so
That's definitely gonna. Well, actually, you know what? To be honest, I don't want to Zoom and tell either. Zooming is taking over my life. I have so many Zoom meetings, but this is the first I've ever heard of a date.
I'm on about 6 hours a day. But yeah, lovely girl that I met on one of the variety of apps. We had a nice conversation, so it was fun. A brave new world we got here.
It really is. So would you like I'm trying to think like getting coffee like I don't remember what first dates anymore. I remember when me and my wife our first date was going to a concert and getting food after. But like would that count as a first date?
I think anything counts as a first date if you want it to count. It was kind of just like a getting to know you, but it was very nice. Very very lovely.
It was all right. So would you do it again?
Sure. Yeah. Why not? I mean, what else do I have to do?
That's a good question. But
we're reviewing a movie that's 25 years old.
No, but we're not reviewing just any movie. We're going to be reviewing Tommy Boy. And that movie, we'll get into it as we get there, but what a classic.
As the kids say, it slaps.
It definitely slaps. I felt both cheeks. Red is a rooster, but I will say this, that the one thing that makes me interested about like Zoom dating and stuff like that, like at least that makes me feel like a little safer because what were you going to do? Like how else would you have dated this person?
I have no idea. Go to New Hampshire and go to one of those outdoor cafes that's open right now.
That's a good point. It's only a matter of time, by the way.
That's a long commitment, though, if we're both from Mass to drive up there for a first date. And if it doesn't go well, which my first dates typically don't, it's not a good. That's a long ride home. That's a long, lonely ride home.
Yeah. Well, anyway, that's good to know, Bill. I will say, while you were probably having your date, I started to freak in the F out because it started pouring out right before we started.
Did it really?
Yeah, downpoured up, at least where I am, in my neck of the woods. And I'm just looking outside to see if it's updated. It looks like it's stopped, but tonight's supposed to be the mosquito spray guys coming.
Ooh, and, doesn't work.
It doesn't work in the rain, and it doesn't work if it rains like within 15 or 16 hours. It shouldn't rain again, but he says he comes when sun's down. Right now, sun is still up. So, for what it's worth.
I had my backyard once sprayed for mosquitoes, and it didn't work.
Oh, you mean that? So I can never tell. It's really just like a peace of mind thing, I think, for my wife more than anything. So, I don't know. We do it. This one's free. This is part of the city we live in. They do it for free. Are you drinking urine?
No, that's Crystal Light.
Oh. Is it iced tea?
I believe it is raspberry lemonade.
Oh, very nice. Classy. Very odd color for raspberry.
I figure I got, the pinkish wine.
Look at that. No, was that for the date? Was that like...
It was, but I didn't pour it before the date started. So I didn't, we were so engrossed in conversation, I never got a chance to pour it.
I see. Well, I'm glad you reported for this date because we're going to be reviewing the movie Tommy Boy. But before we get there, Bill, I got some feedback on our last week's Lost finale episode. It feels like it was like almost 10 years ago when we did that. But any feedback you received, any comments or anything, any thoughts on your own part from it?
I enjoyed it. I really want to break down a lot of Lost stuff. I think we can do a ton of podcasts, a lot of content there. Characters, episodes. I think Moments might be the best one out of them all. So I'd like to hit them all in some short form of variety. And a friend of the podcast, Pachi, was like, I saw, our friend Salvatore Pachi was like, I saw that you guys...
Want to give it social too?
Yeah. Yeah. Do I know his phone number anymore? Probably not. He was like, I saw you guys are on YouTube. My advice, shorter content. And I was like, yes, absolutely. I totally agree with that. We are going to be pumping out shorter content. This is the way we kind of capture our podcast now because we can't really be in the same spot. But yeah, shorter stuff incoming.
Oh, baby.
That's the title of my sex tape.
Exactly. Now, I will say this about that, and I'll get into my law stuff. Me and Bill, at Billy D over there, 2411, we used to do a podcast. We would be literally 6 inches from each other.
Yeah, we would be hovering over. We have to remember, this mic. Well, not this specific one. That specific one. And we would just be like... Yeah, it would be like this. Like, there's the two screens. Like, it would be like that. And what you're seeing on your screen was literally the distance between us. It was very interesting. We got it done. And nobody ever knew. I had a bunch of people that listen to the podcast that work in the industry. And when I worked in that industry at the time, they always say, what microphones, plural, did you have? And I say, I have one blue microphone. I lend the other one to Keith of Dork Podcast, who he still has, because I'm like, I don't have use for the other one right now. So as long as it's going to good use. 2 guys, one microphone.
It really is. We'll get the video after. I'll put that in my mouth one of these days. So I got a bunch of feedback actually on Twitter. I got some people sliding into the old DMs on the podcast about Lost. I'm gonna try to see if I can locate one guy. I think his name is Kerplunk. I don't want to misquote
like the game.
Not spelled like that at all. It's spelled Kuhpunkt.
Yeah, I don't know what that.
I think it's Kerplunk. I just went with Kerplunk because it sounds better. I don't think at all it's Kerplunk. Anyways, he hit us up and went through a lot of stuff. Had a lot of criticisms for you. Did not like a lot of the things you had to say. Said, Billy, I think he found the show more difficult than it meant to be because you were saying how you felt like you needed to watch these videos to understand stuff. He loved me, just so you know, so I appreciate that. But he's also DMing me, so I feel like that's one of those things, like he didn't want to criticize me because it would be easier to criticize the person he's not DMing. Anywho, the long story short.
Too late.
Yeah, seriously. He said a lot of good feedback. Really loved the episode. Said more Lost content, the better. Would really enjoy it. This guy's from another country, by the way, so I don't even know where he. And then he sent me this whole thing. He does this whole subreddit. He's working on a documentary about Lost, and just thought, more content. He would love to see kind of what we come up with that. So that was good. Other people that did just on Twitter were just like that.
Real quick, that guy can eat my poo, by the way, because he didn't understand it either, and he's just flexing like he understood Inception too, probably. Like, come on.
I have to. Oh, first of all, Inception. Don't even get me started. What a movie that is.
Never seen it. Sorry.
That's going to be a one we have to do because it'll be great because it's a top 5 movie for me. A lot of people hate it, and you've never seen it.
I will probably like it. I like a lot of those kind of movies. It just never was. I didn't see it in the movie theaters, and then it had all the buzz, and I was like, "Fuck this movie." But I've heard.
I thought you were there. I saw it on the night it came out with. I remember our friends Kevin, Lauren, and maybe it was Pachi, who you mentioned earlier, but I thought that you were there too, but apparently not. But we got a couple of the feedback, people just saying loved it, didn't like the finale, thought it was still one of the worst finales in the history of television. But I think that's also just what led to it more than the show actually being poor, like the finale being bad. I think the episode itself was great. I think understanding where we all came from and watching some of those old reviews, it was tough. It was a tough ending because we wanted so much more as fans. The last thing I will say about this, I've come to find out I love shows that have an unknown ending, or like we know we're going to get to an ending, but we don't know what it is. Like How I Met Your Mother is my favorite comedy. And I think it's because it's different from all the others because it's not like you're just watching episode to episode. Like you're eventually waiting for some sort of big payoff or some sort of finale of the solving of an issue. Like Lost, that's first episode. You're like, ends with Charlie. Guys, where are we? I'm like, I want to know where they are. And I think that mystery stuff really plays to my liking. So, and I'm disappointed by all the endings, which is really unfortunate.
Title your sex tape. But yeah, I mean, I don't want to rehash my feelings. I just think it was too complicated to get rid of the Flash sideways. Bada bing, bada boom, bada bam. Everything that happened on the island was great. But other than that, I could have done without it.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, I think a lot of people feel that way. But that was our episode last week. You can check it out on the archives. Don't forget, this is Pop Culture Piledriver. For those that are just joining us, welcome in. We are about to review Tommy Boy.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, I agree. When I don't know. Yeah, so the people listening to this and not seeing it when you said that, my face did a. Well, you have to say the comment again. So it's when I said How I Met Your Mother is my favorite comedy of all time. And Dork Podcast goes, How I Met Your Mother is your favorite comedy of all time, signs off. It was a strong first 4 seasons, but it's definitely not anywhere in my top 10 of sitcoms, probably. I know I got a buddy, Frank, who loves it as well, but it's just, I don't know. There's a lot of good episodes as a whole, though. There's so many better comedies, but to each their own. And sure. You liked Dean Ambrose, you liked Seth Rollins, so, Well,
I like good
things. All makes sense. All makes sense.
But I would say when it comes to How I Met Your Mother, at the end of the day, the reason, it was because it intrigued me and everything they tied in. It was well written, really well written. Anyways, so today we are talking about Tommy Boy. This is Pop Culture Piledriver. He is at Billy D 2411. He goes by the name of Billy D. My name is Jason Rossi, and I go by at Jason D Rossi on the Twitter, as well as the good old Instagram if you're into that as well. Today we are going to take a look back at 1995's Tommy Boy. Billy, we'll get through all of our thoughts, all the things we have to say. But when you first knew we were going to be watching Tommy Boy, what was your thought? Oh, geez, I just watched YouTube. What was your first thoughts when rewatching the movie? Like you were going back to watch it, you were thinking, okay, excited for it. Kind of, what was your memory of it? Going into rewatching.
So my family doesn't come together on a lot of things. It's mainly sports, Seinfeld, and movies of this ilk, I would say, this like era of like Mike Myers, Chris Farley, even though we only had, a couple big ones, maybe consider
two really big
Black Sheep, the other one. But when I went back to watch it, I was like, I love this movie. And I had just recently watched Wayne's World before I watched this one. I was like, oh, Wayne's World, it's always a good watch. I watch it a few times a year. I think I'm going to sub out at least one of those viewings for Tommy Boy, because I was like, I remember this movie being so fun. I probably hadn't seen it in full, maybe caught it here and there on like TNT or whatever from time to time. It is a perfect comedy. And I think it does the thing that great comedies do. This movie on its own, without any comedy in it, is a good enough storyline to be a movie. A guy, the father marries a new woman. They're out to get him. He dies. He goes on the road, coming of age, like buddy, road trip kind of movie. Has a nice, solid ending. And the comedy just accents every point of it. And the comedy is outstanding. It's every scene is so perfectly done. They can each stand on their own. Another thing I think highlights all good comedies. Superbad, every scene. All of the Naked Guns, every scene is its own thing. And every one of them has something extremely memorable. Like if you go and just watch like the top 10 scenes of Tommy Boy, they're all standouts. Every one of them has something.
Without a doubt. And just to give you a quick rundown of 1995, I'm just going to throw just the comedies.
Unbelievable.
That reached number one in the box office. Don't have to get into the numbers, but these are all comedies released that in 1995, some released in 94, became number one films. And this is a pinnacle year for comedies. These type of comedies, especially. Dumb and Dumber kicks off the year at number one. Billy Madison at one point was number one. Say what you will about this, the Brady Bunch movie,
unbelievable, an unbelievable comedy.
Tommy Boy, number one. Call this, I'm still living in category of comedy in here. Bad Boys, number one. Casper, just throwing out there. It was number one. Oddly enough, Congo was a number one movie in 1995. Batman.
Right. You've kind of hit a dead end here with good movies.
Oh, well, I'm just saying, these are all movies that have somewhat in the, those weren't really comedies. Get Shorty was also in 1995. I would put in the comedy realm. And the last two I would add is Toy Story and Jumanji. Those movies I just listed Ace Ventura, When Nature Calls, which I think is kind of shit. But
overall, when he's coming out of the elephant, that's a great movie.
That's a great
Slinky on the steps. It's
a rhino, fantastic. By the way. I think it's a rhino.
What did I say?
I think you said an elephant. But
I believe it's fair enough. I was wrong.
But I'm telling you, though, that is just that's just the tip, Bill. Just a little of the 1995 comedy.
That era of the 90s, that like 92 to like 96, there were so many good movies in that era. That was the hot streak of Jim Carrey. That was the hot streak of the guy who was in Home Alone.
Myers.
What's his name?
Joe Pesci?
Joe Pesci had like a string of like, Goodfellas. It was just, that was, I think, the golden era for movies until recently. I think we've come around. Like last year was a great year for movies. I think that was the other like time where every movie that came out, when you go and type in movies of like 92, 93, 94, 95, even 91, I think had some great movies. Like the year that did Forrest Gump win the Academy Award? It was up against like three other, like Shawshank and another great movie. That was just a great era of movies.
Yeah, I just couldn't believe looking at it. Like, I didn't even mention, like, the dramas that were part of this year. Regardless, like, I won't go through them all, but it's just, like, there is some, like, Apollo 13, Waterworld, just some, like, these are incredibly and memorable movies. Just, fun fact, also, Mortal Kombat was number one for about 3 weeks. What a world.
Yeah, great song. Terrible movie.
Yeah,
not as bad as Street Fighter. Was my cousin, what year was my cousin Vinny?
I was just during that era. Oh, that was Joe Pesci. That's, I think,
yeah.
reference.
My biological clock is ticking like this.
So this movie, Tommy Boy, was released on March 31st, 1995. We just passed the 25-year anniversary. And, Bill, let me give you a little what the hell was going on in the world at this time. Well,
a little price of milk?
Look, I don't have price of milk, but I can tell. Actually, I should. Actually, I do have the price of milk. I'll look it up right now. Price of milk was precisely $1.68. 1995, $1.68. That's a gallon, by the way. So when Tommy Boy was released, Madonna's "Take a Bow" was the number one hit in the United States on the Billboard Hot 100.
Not one of her best songs.
No, not really memorable either to me. Lightning's "Lightning Crashes" was the number one alt song.
That's a great song.
Lightning crashes. The number one movie the week it was released was Outbreak, which is kind of funny when you think about the world we're living in today.
Wow, what's going on?
Exactly. Tank Girl was the other movie that was a major release on this date. Pop star Selena died, or she was shot and killed on this day, March 31st, 1995. Lighten it up the mood. Who was your WCW champion, Bill, in 1995, March 31st?
1995, March 31st. I'm going to say it was either Sting or Ric Flair.
Both incorrect. Hulk Hogan, in part of his longest title reign at the company. And who was your WWF champion? Known as the worst year in wrestling in WWF's fiscal, like the worst year they've had. Some people say creatively, but definitely financially.
Shawn Michaels?
Diesel. Diesel is the champion.
But it was going back and forth between the two of them at the time.
At the time, it was Diesel's. Shawn Michaels, he beat him recently at a WrestleMania 11. So that is kind of what the picture of the world, you could say, from all the very, very important stuff. We also, look at that. Dish Joker lost his virginity in 1995 on March 31st.
I lost mine several years later.
Me too, Bill. And I'm happy.
It would be kind of creepy if I lost mine in 1995.
And honestly, Dish Joker, I'm questioning that. That's a young man still. Anyways, so now let's get into it. We, right off the bat, the curtain jerker, speaking about things like that. Did you like the film, Bill?
I mean, I can't understate how much this, it is a perfect comedy. Watching it back, I could watch this once a week. It is that damn good. Every single scene from start to finish, even the way the movie starts, is perfect with him as the kid running, and then they do the kind of parallel scene with him as the adult, and everything like the son of a that carries through. And it's so odd to have perfect running jokes through a movie, but they do it so well with the shut up, Richard, and son of a, and everything about this movie from the word go is incredible.
Completely agree. Sorry, I just want to let everybody know I watched this on legit DVD.
I bought it. I bought it on Amazon because it was rent or buy, because I couldn't find it to stream anywhere. Yeah, so maybe we should consider that next time we do one of these so people can stream along. But buy this movie. If you don't own this movie, own this movie. It is totally, the boxer said, what was it? Skip it, own it, rent it, or whatever it is.
It's an own it.
It's an own it.
It's a hard own it. We should steal that from them. They're gone anyways. No, we don't need to steal.
But not forgotten. They're alive. They're not dead.
No. Both equally fine gentlemen with very creative minds. So for me, this movie, without a doubt, is, I shouldn't say without a doubt, it's very much up there, maybe the perfect comedy. For all the reasons you stated, because this is a good movie. The story, you actually care. I'll say I loved Billy Madison. At this time frame in my life, I was 10, 11, 12 watching these movies, I loved Billy Madison because it was ridiculous. When you think about that movie, it's just ridiculous. This movie, as much as there's ridiculousness to it, it's very much coaxed in reality. The situations that are put in hand, you could see happening. And the number one thing, I think Tommy Boy, Chris Farley's Tommy Boy, is not only the most relatable, but the most likable comedy character, maybe of all time, but specifically in this era. Lloyd Christmas, I thought I always loved him. He's a moron. Let's be honest. Both those guys in Dumb and Dumber is as titled. Billy Madison, ridiculously goofy and stupid. Same thing with Happy Gilmore, Austin Powers, all your very big popular movie franchise guys that are comedies. This might be the most relatable because he can be picked on the whole movie, but he never is offended by it at all necessarily. He has moments with Richard, but that's why I think Tommy Boy is so goddamn relatable.
That's the key word that you hit on there, and I was going to touch on it myself. Relatable is the key. Even Richard is super relatable. The problem of the town is super relatable. The father-son relationship, I thank my lucky stars, knock on wood, have not lost a parent, but that is a relatable thing, losing a loved one. So there are so many touchstones within this movie that you can draw to, and the way that they build the comedy around it. Now, I hate per se the slowdown of Wedding Crashers because I think it gets too slow. But this movie is an emotional, there's a romantic connection between him and the girl in the boat, which is one of the best scenes in the entire movie. Michelle. There are so many, I can't even say it's one of the best. It's probably top 10 out of this movie. But everything in this movie is something that you could see happening to you, to a loved one, to your best friend. Everything that happens to Tommy Boy is relatable, except maybe going to school for 7 years, but I did.
But no, I was just going to say, actually, and that's one of my favorite lines in the movie is, not everybody goes to school for 7 years. Or
some do. Some
people go to
doctors.
School. Yeah. And I'll get into some side stuff with David Spade. But one of the things that you mentioned right off the bat, if you rewatch the opening scene, that has to be the worst looking and most dangerous treehouse I've ever seen. It's only 2 walls, and it's so minor, but I picked up on it when I watch it. The stairs look awful. And this kid's like a hefty little kid, and he's going up these very rinky-dink looking wooden stairs, and then the actual, like, there's no top to the house. It's just literally one side. I'm like, what is this hanging from? It's literally like in the crevice of a tree, right? Like, I don't know. Anyways, it was that grabbed me. And also, just so you know, 1995, has it ever felt more like 1978 or 89 or somewhere in that like weird decade? It didn't feel like the 90s to me.
So I'm terrible at math, but when I did this math, it was pretty easy. It was 95. No, you thought WrestleManias were like the first one didn't count.
Well, it's stupid, Billy.
You thought it was like your birthday. No, it's an actual. No,
it doesn't make any sense.
We're not going down this road again.
Yeah, whatever. All right, continue. I'm ready for the math.
So the first scene straight out of the gate after you get the flashback to when he was a kid, there are just so many individual funny moments. Just him running down the campus when he's running at that kid, and he's like, "Ah!"
Yeah, the kid. That makes I think about that scene since we watch it, and I'm like, what was going on in that guy's mind? Like, just move out of the way if you're scared.
And then when he slows down for the girls, hey, and then the banging on the doors, for the love of God, please, no. And then the girl just opens the door.
I want to also the fence when he runs into the fence. Through the bushes.
Son of because they're putting it up now.
Yeah.
Everything about it is just spot on from the get-go. And even him filling out the paper, Herbie Hancock, and that's an immediate callback. I need you, John Herbie Hancock.
Yeah.
Just phenomenal. I think it's like that Judd Apatow type of comedy before Judd Apatow was doing comedies. I'm assuming he was inspired by this film and like films like this from that era.
I would agree. Yeah. Also, just a couple notes, especially with this, like Tommy's father. I know there was comments in there, but there is not a more perfect fit for a father-son looking duo. They really like if someone were to tell
me, nailed the casting. Absolutely. If Brian Dennehy. Oh my God. Yeah,
if they said, "Hey, Brian Dennehy's really Chris Farley's father," like you'd be like, "Oh, I see it. Yeah, it makes sense." Like the Douglases or the Estevezes. Like you'd be like, "Oh, yeah, I see it. I see it now that you said it."
Well, I mean, Jerry Stiller and Ben Stiller, I don't know too much of what Jerry Stiller looked like as a young man, but they don't look like they're, father-son. No, and they never really were cast together as that.
No, that's a really funny part about their history, too. But yeah, there was, a couple other notes that I've noticed about the movie while we're talking about this, then we'll get into some of the acting and writing is Rob Lowe. This was definitely my first introduction to him and still don't really get the hype. I wasn't a girl in the 80s. But the funny thing about him in this movie, did a lot of physical, comedy, not anything he's done prior to this movie and nothing he did again. Like they almost built him up to be like a slapstick, physical comedy guy with the bag coming down on his crotch, being attacked by a dog. There's something. Oh, when he gets electrocuted for peeing. By the way, nice shout out.
Don't whiz on the electric fence.
That's absolutely where they got that from, and it's proved that that's why you don't. But yeah, he gets his ass beat, and then there's the one scene where it's like how there's gratuitous there's also a scene we'll get to after the gratuitous sex scene or sexy scene in most movies. There was a gratuitous Rob Lowe shirtless scene for no reason.
You need that. I mean, that's the thing about Rob Lowe in this movie too. He is coming off being an absolute heartthrob, more serious type roles, and after this was pretty much his comedy move, right?
Yeah, I don't know. He's one of those weird guys, and this is gonna sound weird. I can't think of much of his career. I think of Rob Lowe. I think of Tommy Boy and the roast that just happened 2 years ago. He doesn't have these I think he was in a couple TV shows.
Parks and Rec is the thing that I love him most in by far and away. He's unbelievable in that. Chris Traeger, how you doing? Every time he shakes somebody's hand, he'd be like, Jason Rossi, how you doing? Jason Rossi.
Oh, I have seen this. I've seen clips. Didn't watch the show either.
Really? Oh, it's a great show. That's a quarantine watch for sure.
There's a lot of quarantine watch. I'm still rocking through Sopranos. We're no longer binging Sopranos. We're watching it one an episode a night or one every other night because
that's the way to do it. That's the way when I preach people to watch Psych, that's what you got to watch. But he was a heartthrob type of guy. He was in St. Elmo's Fire, The Outsiders.
The 80s.
Yeah. But I mean, he was also in one of my other favorite comedies of all time, Wayne's World, as this type of character.
Oh my. Yeah, that's with Tia Carrera. He was trying to steal her when they were trying to buy the studio and stuff like that too. His breakthrough. 21 Jump Street. Forgot Rob Lowe was on that. Also Dora. Yep. See, 1995 coming in big there.
Yeah, before watching Vince Vaughn, Will Ferrell, I'd say Tommy Boy, Ace Ventura, Dumb and Dumber, and Billy Madison were the greatest things ever. I would say if you haven't seen Tommy Boy recently, I think it holds up better than almost even Dumb and Dumber. Dumb and Dumber on Laugh for Laugh is definitely the funnier movie. Probably one of the funniest comedies of all time. This is probably my second favorite. I got to give Clue that because I'm just a Clue guy. But this movie, as a movie, is a better story.
Oh, without a doubt. And like, it's really not close. I think to all these movies, it's a better story. And like we said, a realistic story. So let's get into the speak and spell. Bill, acting and writing for this movie. What did you think?
Yeah, again, absolutely knocked out of the park. The acting on all parts was incredible. Chris Farley's acting is obviously over the top, but even the simple over the top ones where he's just like, Richard pulls the door off and he's just like, "What'd you do?"
Oh, that scene.
I've used that since that day. Every
time I watch this with my good friend Pat, friend of the pod as well. We used to do that all, like, anytime like I spill a drink, you just turn, "What'd you do?" And that to me is the most underrated part of that movie, because it's not outlandish. He doesn't scream it. It's not crazy. It's just literally like he screws up the car door. By the way, one of the most unrealistic parts of the movie, how he bends the door back and then when it just pops off.
He's just hitting it like a linebacker, like boom, 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 boom. But I don't know if the writing was intended, maybe with the Holy Schnikes, they were hoping to like launch a catchphrase, but they wound up doing so many things that I still do to this day. When we like go to Vegas with buddies or we're at a hotel trip, you can't tell me you don't do the housekeeping
every time.
You don't whiff a pillow?
I went to Montreal in 7th grade, and I went down every door and did that. And I did say the line, "You want me to jerk you off?" And to be honest, I didn't know what it meant.
Please let me sleep, for the love of God. It's unreal.
What kind of hotel is this?
It's unbelievable the amount of quotes that come out of this movie that I don't think were intentional. So even just like the conversational stuff, like Richard's lines in this movie are how I would behave in real life. Like all right, so where's Moron? Moron is here. I always do all right, Magellan, anytime anybody's trying to do anything with directions. This, when I watched it back, I was like, there were so many things that I say from this movie that I forgot were from this movie.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. There's so much to it. And then even the acting, like just to go with Chris Farley, fun fact I found out, the first day they filmed, took 26 hot espressos right to the gullet and and then started acting. No, I know it's obviously all right.
Like JoJo, the Indian circus boy.
I'm going to try to act that out in a few minutes. But that's how we got all amped up. Obviously, this man had a lot of depression. We come to find out there's a documentary. You can watch stuff on him. But like, this is how he got through. And obviously there was drugs involved at some point in his life. But all the people, Bo Derek would say she would be sitting there ready to film, and she'd watch it, and she'd see Chris come in and just start chugging espresso after espresso after espresso. They go, "Let's go," and he just did that. And then the hair would go up, and then he would just go right into filming. He would say like he wouldn't want to over practice his lines. Some of the lines you hear in this movie are ad-libbed just because him and David Spade had such good chemistry. David Spade actually came out and said that they both started on SNL on the same exact day, walked over from the trailer at the same exact time, got to know each other there, and that's basically where their chemistry, this like brotherish, like love-hate relationship started right there. So I just think that really did help. And as for the writing, completely, like you said, some of the greatest comedy lines that people, like you said, it wasn't like 2010 movies or even modern day movies where you can tell they're trying to make a very famous scene, or they're trying to make a very famous line, or they're overdoing something. This was just simply like probably realistic stuff that these guys went through.
I have cat-like speed reflexes. I use that again all the time. Even when one of the guys is like, "Oh man, I'd really like a piece of that. Is there an edit button on that thing?" And he's just like, "It'll cost you." I always inflect the "it'll cost you" anytime I've used it, like Richard from this movie.
It's great. And it was written by Bonnie and Terry Turner, and then Fred Wolf. These are the writers, obviously directed by Peter Siegel.
Who did Naked Gun 33 and a Third.
Oh, we sure did. And it's just like, honestly, it's just so incredible, some of the stuff they came up with. Like one of the scenes, and this is why I think the writing is so good, they wanted to do the deer scene, the famous deer scene in the car. And they tried to actually get a real deer to go in the car to go through all this. And when they went to do it, they actually worked with, I guess I call him a stunt coordinator or a deer farmer. I don't know what they're called.
Animal wrangler.
And him too. And basically they ended up having a guy in a suit
Jim
that
Fowler
ripped up
from
the car.
Seinfeld.
But what they did, they actually had deer piss put all over the car. The one time you see real deer is when the deer's on top of the car, and they wrote to make sure that there was a real deer. So they had to put like pee all over this car and wait 2 nights for a deer to actually come up on the car and then eventually scan away once they turned the lights on.
That's like, amazing. That is just such great production skill and commitment to the movie. And it really does make the movie because, as he says, that was awesome. I mean, everything about it, even like the stupid stuff, the fat guy in a little coat, probably I think is the most iconic thing that will be. We'll get to that. I probably shouldn't even spoil that. Spoiler alert later in the pod. But even when he's just going through the part where he thinks, and he did, Richard just whacked it out the window. I bet you he plays for the Yankees. Who's your favorite comedian? Buddy Wackett. And like the way they write it in is like a way you would rib your friend in real life. Again, making it a very relatable thing.
Oh, absolutely. And I want to mention that scene because I noted this while watching. Like I remember as a kid there was something up, but this is the oddest masturbation scene in the history of movies or maybe television because they play it so well that if you're a little kid watching this movie,
I had no idea what was going on.
Neither did I. And it's all the sound effects, the zip. And clearly you can't believe that this woman was, in the beginning, I'm like, did this woman really just get naked in a pool? Like I was watching this with my wife, and she's like, did she really just do that? I'm like, no, that's the point. It's in his head. Because then Tommy comes back. By the way, great part by Tommy when he first passes by.
Don't do the weight room thing?
Don't do the weight room thing. You know where the weight room is? I'll find it.
Tommy, don't give her the weight room routine.
So, and then obviously he goes, no one's watching. It's naughty time. And then you hear the zip, all that stuff. Then she comes back in. Great scene. And like I said, just very odd because they don't and then like you said, there's so many innuendos.
You don't know as a kid. Like that was before I learned my body was a wonderland and I could have fun with it on my own. So I had no idea what they were talking about. Even those jokes didn't land, obviously, as a kid with the Yankees and all that stuff.
Oh my God.
Brothers don't shake hands. Brothers got a hug.
Also, the great scene with the bees, like another famous scene.
Bees in the car. Bees everywhere.
And then the cop goes,
I'm allergic to bees.
Yeah, he goes, so am I. Keep rolling, son. We'll send help. And then he pukes on the ant farm. The ants are pissed. But the great part about that scene also, that, and the writer said this, that was just something they tried once. They literally, in real life, said to themselves, they were getting pulled over, and they said, we're getting attacked by bees. And they said, it didn't work. So I always thought about that. Like I remember as I aged with this movie, I said, do you think if I ever get pulled over? But by the way, one time I wasn't the one drinking as much, but I had drunk people in my car. We dropped a chicken sandwich. It's a famous story. Outside of McDonald's up on Montville Ave in famous Woburn. Sure people in the comment section know all about that. But I was driving back and the sandwich fell, so I went to go grab it while driving. Very dumb. Swerved, got pulled over. Cop comes up to the car and he says, the hell's going on in here? I said, very sorry, officer. I was driving we'll just say commercial vehicle at the time for lack of a better term. And I go, sorry, officer. I was, just reaching for my chicken sandwich. And he goes, I thought you guys were fucked up. And they were like, yeah. And I had two friends that were absolutely obliterated in the car. I'm like, oh yeah. No. We're just getting back from a promotion. Just got to get that chicken sandwich. And he ended up letting us go. So that's as close to bees, screaming bees. But that is genius scene. Loved that part of the movie. Always made me laugh as a kid. And I just love the way Chris Farley's like itching everywhere. Also does a little AC Slater the time that Zach puts the itching ants on him when he's trying to get him.
He also rolls over the top of the car. Why? That's the other thing. The physical comedy in this is absolutely amazing. The fight scene in front of the prehistoric forest. I use that all the time. Like if I wanted to kiss, I would have called your mother. All of those things.
Oh my God.
He's just too afraid. He's a little guy.
Yeah, that's the scene. That's the one that always gets me. Just a little guy. And oh man, just incredible stuff. Incredible stuff by the two of them. But then also he just whacks him.
Getting too close to the car.
And then he just whacks him with a 2x4, which is just there's so much icing on the cake. It just walks off.
And then the next scene is the cut to the I'm Sorry song. He's just like, I don't feel it so much here. Yeah. And that's another one that I use. But right here. Nope. Yeah. Ship shape.
And then the woman goes, what happened to your face? I knew it. Obviously, I'm going to get into that scene in a minute because that scene, I think, is honestly one of the more memorable. And now with my new life, I find very fitting. But now let's talk about the music in this movie. And I think this is one of the first movies that put out, like, I didn't buy the soundtrack, but I looked at it. The soundtrack crushes. Oh my Lord. And it takes a while. Though, obviously, right off the bat, when you think Tommy Boy, you think music. You probably think Dexy Midnight Runners, Come On Eileen, which this was the introduction for me with that song. And I remember singing it for years. Never heard the full song. Just would always go, come on, Eileen. Oh, I swear by the means. And I love it. I love that song. I love the use of it. I love the car driving. But like the thing, I always thought there was so much more music in this, but it really comes in when they're driving. You get the S2, S2.
Oh my! I see. S2. And the song that I did for the preview video for this one is absolutely friggin' amazing. Every song in this movie is used with a purpose, and I would say it's Forrest Gump had a great soundtrack, but this had an active soundtrack where they were singing along in the car, and even the I'm Sorry, the cut to that, it wasn't like a composed song for that moment. They chose a real one. And I always love when they do that stuff.
Yeah, I also got to give credit to, I'm trying to remember what the name of the actual song is, but I didn't know this was like a real hit song back before, but that like, my future's so bright.
I gotta wear shades.
Like, I literally did not know that was like I thought that was just made up for this movie because I've never heard it before that. Another one, the great scene when they're driving with End of the World by R.E.M. Oh. And nobody knows. And then it goes into S-True. And then also funny story David Spade told, I found a fun fact, the Carpenter scene where they're, it's like, you want to change it? No, you can change it. So far away. So it finds out that song, David Spade had a party around this time and had people come over. He had all records, and he was listening to that prior to the party. So someone just turned on his record player and the Carpenters were playing, and everyone's kind of like looking at him weird, and he starts singing like slightly, and then everybody in the room started singing. So he said, and so he went to the writers. He said, once he found out there was going to be music scenes, he goes, we have to do this. And they brought it right in. That's why I love it. And it's such a
real, that's one of the more relatable things, if not the most relatable thing in the whole movie, is you and your friends singing a song in the car, which has happened over and over again. Oh, yeah. One of my favorite things is one of our good friends, Jimmy, with the worst voice you've ever heard, would always belt out, I think it was Ocean's Avenue at the top of his lungs when we were driving, and it was hilarious. See, but there's so many good memories I have, like driving around with our friends and singing songs at the top of my lungs from a younger days, and I'll sing their songs now. I'm not embarrassed by it. Taking Back Sunday with the multiple voices that we were all trying to do at once. It's some of the greatest memories I have, and that's captured in that scene.
Oh, absolutely. It like we said, the music just plays so well to the script, to the movie, makes it move along too. Like there's a lot of movies that just take you from one scene to the next. They're like a flash, and then we're done. Like they don't do that in this movie. Like we see the journey from where they are to where they're going, from airplane scene, which is another classic, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a few minutes. It's like this movie doesn't miss. This may be like Randy Orton in a ring, no wasted movements. This movie doesn't skip a beat. Like I think Get Out is one of the most perfectly written movies because everything you see throughout the movie means something towards the end and what the whole meaning behind the movie, especially in the times we're living in right now. But that movie, like there's so much to it. And this movie doesn't do that, but there is not a scene you go, oh, what was the point of that? That was dumb. That didn't mean anything. Everything means something in this. And I know it's a comedy script in an hour and 25-minute movie, but every scene is so goddamn memorable.
There's so much in it. There's so much in every scene, and every scene leads beautifully into the next one. Going back to the first thing that we were talking about, the writing of this thing, every scene flows. The storyline is very tight. There are some outlandish things that happen, but for the most part, this is all very realistic stuff, except for the bomb, which, again, another amazing scene. The giant guy with the tiny head. I have a tiny head.
Yeah. And then as the elevator door's closing, too. I also love the scene there when he just goes, this will only take a second. Everybody dies on the ground.
Just throwing the guns.
And then the cop, when the reporter comes in, he goes, yeah, there's a big man. He came in, he hit me with a hammer.
Over the head with a tack hammer, and eventually I just had to, I got kids.
I had to give him my gun. I got kids. And then when the reporters, this is a classic part of the movie, could have easily been edited out. She's like, all right, John, back to you. And he's just kind of like getting her attention again, like easily didn't need to be in the movie. It's just so good. Oh, we doing a refill there?
Oh, yeah.
Well, what do we got? Now you can show the bottle. What are we rocking today? The Tommy Boy. Look at that beaut. I can't read that.
Yeah, neither can I.
That's some crazy Italian.
It tastes good.
All right. Do we want to do a stab at the actor or just kind of play off a favorite line of ours?
You can go for it first.
I was pulling up the script and now I lost my place in it, but
forget it. I quit. I can't do this anymore. My head's about to explode. My whole life sucks. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what I'm doing. My dad just died. We just killed Bammy. I'm out here getting my ass kicked. And every time I drive down the road, I want to drive. What is it? I want to jerk the wheel into a goddamn Bridget Putman. Like, I remember that scene so well as a kid. Like, that one was just fucking hilarious.
That honestly is so incredible because we've all been at our just wit's end, and when nothing we do is right, everything continues to fail. And it encapsulates like Chris Farley had such a good way of being a miserable bastard. Like even if you go back to the inspirational motivational speaker, Matt Foley, Live Down by the River, like all that is
unfortunately, by the way, I am slowly turning into Matt Foley. I don't live in a van down by the river, but I live in an apartment down the river. I'm 36 and I am divorced. So it's getting close.
I would say you still have a couple legs up. You're in good shape.
Yeah, it's true.
And you went on a Zoom date, Bill. Did Matt Foley go on a Zoom date?
It wasn't available at the time, though.
Yeah, I don't think he was going to do it anyways. And by the way, Chris Farley was also an ideal fat man because he had the biggest belly. Like, as someone who has belly fat, like I'm a bigger guy, but I have like this stubborn ass belly fat. Like he always put his belt so low in his pants. In this movie, he did it again to just accentuate how big his belly was.
Well, he would take bear claws 2 at a time as a child, and then we get lodged in this region right here.
I can't get the exact lining, but I just love the scene when they're at the diner with Helen, and I just love when he's just like, I'll take your, first of all, David Spade, just a great, I'll take the shrimp cocktail I saw in the window. Like, first of all, who just has shrimp cocktail in a window? Like, it's not like a diner or like where there's cake out there, but and then she's like, sorry, with between 4 and 6, the fryers are turned off. Oh, I really could go for some chicken wings. You mind checking on those? And she's like, yeah, let me do that.
Yeah, they're closed.
Yeah, they're closed. And then he's just like, all right, I'll just take a couple sugar packets. First of all, that's great. That whole situation, before we even get into it, then he basically says, what's your name? Helen? Yeah. Oh, Helen.
Let me tell you why I suck at sex.
But first he goes, you look like a Helen. Which, that cannot be a compliment.
No, not in this day and age. Back then, that was before the whole Karen movement, though.
Of course, but still, Helen, like even in 1995, say 94, you're not looking at someone going, you look like Ashley. Like nowadays, like you look like an Ashley. You look like a Samantha. Not just going up to somebody, this girl who potentially you zoomed with earlier. You might be like, look like a Helen.
Yeah, Helen's not a compliment these days. Although I typically exclusively now date girls with old names like Gladys or Carol.
So, and how old are these women? Are these elder women?
They're of my age. They're not like 60.
There's you dated a Gladys.
Yeah.
No, we'll talk about that off air. But this scene just gets so incredible because then he's like, you're in sales, I'm in sales, and he just gets into this complete rant. And I'm sorry I don't have the script in front of me, but it doesn't really matter. You don't have to get quote for quote because he basically just says, every time I'm getting into a sale, I'm getting into my pitch, I'm like JoJo, the biggest circus guy. And the way his hair, I just love that my hair's so long right now for this too. And he's like, I get all excited, and what I do is I grab my little sale and I pet it. And I laugh. You're a naughty little sale. And then I crash it, and he rips it up, and he's like, and then I blow it.
My favorite's when he goes,
yeah. And then he's like, and then I blow it. And that's why, people like us, Helen, we have to do, hard work together. And she's like, let me get those wings on for you. And he's like, oh, really? That's great. I like you. Tommy want wingy.
Oh my God. The face he makes, just like the whole fat scrunched up from his neck. And then he uses that because Spade's character, Richard's like, sell like that. And then he does it with the chicken wings with the guy who's like guaranteed on the box. And then he goes into like the raped and murdered his family routine. And it's just like, okay, I'll buy from you.
He's like, what is your point? You want all that for a guarantee on a box? I could sell you a pack of shit and put a guarantee on it.
That means you got a guaranteed piece of shit.
This movie is great. And see, that's another thing I think that we haven't even hit on. And as we get to wrapping up with this, is like, this movie is smart. Like what we just went through, that scene was an evolution, but it wasn't in like 80s montage. It wasn't portrayed as a growth scene. It slowly progressed in showing him at his wit's end and showing how he was comfortable to do what he needed to do to save his father's company and take over and be the hero. And Richard, the reason his character is so great, because he recognized that he is smart. And then they went to street smart versus book smart. And I remember using that line all the time to my parents because I was getting like D's, and I'd be like, well, I'm street smart. And they're like, you're 10. And I'd be like, yeah. So let's talk about the legacy, Bill. What do you think is the most memorable thing from this movie? We've talked a lot of scenes and we've left off some scenes, but what do you think ideally is the legacy scene of Tommy?
I think the legacy scene is fat guy in a little coat, but the movie is so much more than the fat guy in a little coat. It is amazing where he does the song and then he goes, "Oh, we're Richard," and then he just rips it like Hulk Hogan taking off the shirt, which is just phenomenal. And then Richard later wearing the same like jacket. Everything about this movie is just so like perfectly continued. Even though, did you eat paint chips as a kid? Did you live under power lines as a kid? And they all kind of just build upon themselves. Like everything is a running gag, which is tough to like pull off in movies. And I think people don't want to do it anymore. Maybe that's why you don't see them as much. But this movie had so many like consistency to their jokes, which I think does pay off. Like the rule of threes is a thing, and it does work great in movies. Yeah, but I think the fat guy in a little coat, to get back to where I went off track there, that would be the legacy.
So from one funny note about fat guy in a little coat, Chris Farley, another one of those things, he was just chugging down some espressos before, saw David Spade's coat, put it on, didn't sing it. So he was just going, "Hey, fat guy in a little coat." He was just like joking around behind the scenes, "Fat guy in a little coat." And then the director went up to Peter Stigler and said, "Do you sing?" And he's like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Sing it." And then he came up with "fat guy in a little coat." And they said, "We're using that in the movie." That was another one of those things that wasn't in the script. They said, "We got to place it," found the perfect spot. Because really look at it. And when you look at that movie, that scene is just kind of like the ending of them being in that hotel. It doesn't add or come out. So for me, I think the legacy, this is where it becomes really hard because we barely touched upon the airplane scene, which is just so funny. My favorite part of that is when the old woman, who was like perfectly cast, curmudgeon-y old looking lady, and she comes out of the toilet like, "Oh my." David Spade goes in, pulls a dinky gun 33 in the third when his wife's gonna leave. Yep, pops right in and out. Then Chris Farley's like, "What?" He's like, "Get in there." Great scene, but I think for me, it's going to have to be the singing in the car. I think those, like, from the songs that they chose, people will remember this movie from that. Like, there's all small little scenes, but I think those montages really paved the way for a lot of the musical singing montages you see going forward in, like,
film.
Basically penned into most comedies, like before American Pies and stuff. This is where all these, like, you see a lot of the work, like you said, a lot of the movies that we've seen later in the 2000s and even to 2010s. How many times you see music scenes in those? There really wasn't a ton of them. Like Billy Madison early in the year had the one when he's on the stairs, or "Do you have any more gum, more gum?" But that was like goofy. Those
were original too. This was just like they worked in songs into a movie, and I love that. I think you can't find a good movie that doesn't have good music. I think it really is hand in hand. Even if it's something like a Batman movie, the Christopher Nolan ones, they may not have a popular music, but the soundtrack, Home Alone, Star Wars, all the music that's created for those
John
movies,
Williams. Yeah, John Williams is
all involved, of those things drive the movie, and even like the songs that are composed for this movie work beautifully in it.
Yeah, I completely. I can't disagree with you there. Now we have the Then Now Forever. What do you think? Will this movie stand? Well, you already kind of.
It already did. It did. Yeah, it totally did. At the time, it was one of the funniest movies I had seen. Now, watching it back 25 years later from my first original viewing, with probably in the teens to maybe 20 times watching it since, it holds up better than ever, and I like it more now than I originally did. I could literally pop this movie on at any point in the day. I could have seen it yesterday, and I would not get sick of it. And then it holds up forever. This movie will never get old.
No, I agree. This is one of the funnier movies, realistic movies, not over the top, ridiculous movies. It is just fun. Every scene. There is not a scene you're going to go, "Oh, I really got to skip this part." Nope. It always do get frustrated. They do add in the movie trope of like the villain getting over and doing that one thing where Michelle, because she doesn't use the paper log, she uses everything on the computer. But by the way, talk about making you feel like this movie's a million years old. "Oh, you don't use the paper logs, you're using the computer." It's like, what in the world? But think about it. Windows 95 came out that year, or 94 came out technically, but you know what I mean. But like, whatever program Rob Lowe goes in, deletes it. By the way, shows how easy you could screw up things back then. Holy crap, he just goes in and there's 1,000 orders, change it to 10. All of a sudden, the whole thing doesn't work out. We didn't even also get into...
I just lost all my files. It can still happen to this day.
I don't want to talk about it. I can only imagine. That's why you're drinking. And Dan Aykroyd, by the way, great side piece in this as Sandusky.
I make car parts for the American working man because that's who I am. That's who I care about.
That's why. Yeah, and then I love the commercial with the little kid. "Thanks, Ray." "No, son. Thank you."
And the hair, the fucking great. He even has the.
He was Coneheads. He had the Coneheads hair.
Yeah,
I swear.
You went a little heavy on the. Pine tree perfume, buddy. That was a Cabby's air freshener. Oh, he pinpointed the smell. That's step one. Step two is washing it off. Like every line is like not like there's like you said. There's no wasted motion in this movie. Everything is impactful. Everything is funny. And if it's not funny, it's serious. But then it's not serious for long. No. Even the scene with Michelle in the boat, which is kind of like an awkward first date-ish thing. It picks up momentum. I know who you are, and I've seen where you sleep. I swear to God, your mothers will cry when they see what I've done to you.
And I love the kid just when they run.
They also, I noticed this even as a kid, they ran like out around and then took like a U-way to leave.
Especially one kid goes the other way, then circles back. It's a great scene. I think this is like without a doubt. This stands up. It's a movie you want to watch. It's a movie that if you're in a good mood, you make your better mood. If you're in a down mood, it will make you laugh because there's so many parts. Like you might remember, like some of the stuff we mentioned. You might remember the airplane scene. You might remember the bees scene. But did you remember that scene at the gas station? Even a funny part, the gas station attendant being like, "Yeah, you're gonna need a new map." Yeah, but here on the thing, yeah, man. Like I said, you can go down that way, but. That's an old map, so you're going to need a new map. And it's just like even little stuff like that, even to the scene, like going to the sad part. When Chris Farley's dad died, you have to really think about this. How tragic, by the way. It's at his GD wedding. He's performing a song out of nowhere. Impromptu band just knows the truth.
That's another like song used in real life there. It's just beautiful stuff.
And, he dies, obviously, marrying Bo Derek, which is another funny thing with the Solinsky, like at the end, like Bo Derek and him, like after Rob Lowe gets his nuts crushed, because that was a whole weird thing. So she played off as a son for how long? Let's just say even 6 months to get into this family's money. Then not realizing that the family was about to lose all the money. She's dating her son, her fake son,
her husband.
Yeah. Her husband. Oh, yeah, you're right. And then at the end, Solinsky's like, "Oh, come with me." And it's like, this woman is a gold digger who just did horrible things to this other family. And you're like, whatever. Come along with me with your cone head hair already ready. That was so bizarre.
Yeah, she is Bo Derek.
Yeah, but even Bo Derek to me.
I honestly thought if they were casting maybe a little bit hotter for an older woman, but I mean, it's Brian Dennehy, not in his prime. So, or maybe that was his prime. I don't know.
I was going to say that could be his prime.
But just... absolutely home run after home run. Every joke just absolutely nails. Even the Luke, that's
another scene with the. How many times did you do that as a kid? Every time there was a fan, I would go and talk into him. My wife told me when we were watching, she's like, yeah, she does that with my son sometimes when I'm working downstairs. She's like, "Oh yeah, I talk in the fan to him." That's also he gets his own office. He's like, and that's a whole nother funny scene when Richard's like, "Oh great," they're like, the nerds.
Oh, you get a window.
Yeah,
you've been here 5 minutes. Why shouldn't you?
Yeah, exactly.
The nerds and I will retire to the nerdery with our calculators.
The nerdery. That's the line I was looking for. So what do you think at the end of this? Final thoughts here, the pull apart. What do you like? What are your final thoughts on the movie? I guess we don't really have a full ranking system yet. If we had to go with
11, I think we gotta go.
Yeah, go to 11. Go to 11. What do you give this?
11. 11 out of 11. It's a perfect comedy. 100%. I don't even think this is hyperbullying. I really think when you go and watch this back, if you haven't seen it in a while, it stands the test of time. It's an ultimately funny movie. There's not a bad scene. The acting, the writing, the directing, everything about this is crushed.
I couldn't agree more. It's a hard 11 for me. It is an incredible movie. It's going to be hard. Like I tried to also compare, like if say we just for interest, like retrospect. Oh, this opens, just realized. Oh, this must be the map. Look at that. Just noticing this as we go along. By the way, how funny is it that we're doing this aside from my crappier lighting? This is what most television, like SportsCenter's done a really good job. ESPN has really stepped up their game because ESPN. But a lot of shows I've been watching on TV look like this. It's really weird.
I think we might look a little bit better at times.
Thank you. I know I do. I want to talk about next week. I'll talk about my hair. I'm going to be buzzing this baby off for the kids with cancer. We'll get to that. But yeah, it's a hard 11 because at the end of the day, like we said, it's a perfect movie. If I had to compare, like if I watch this, Billy Madison, Dumb and Dumber, I don't know if I watch all three. And that's only, again, just a little taste of movies that were number one in 1995 for comedies. We can throw in Ace Ventura. You can throw in your Austin Powers. I know it's later down the road. But one thing I've noticed about this, or Wayne's World, one thing I noticed about this is that it's just a fun movie and relatable, and you want to see these guys succeed more than all the other characters, I would say, because they're not jerks. They don't have that arc where it's like, oh, this guy's like, Richard has a jerkness to him, but there's a reason. He felt like he hasn't gone anywhere
even since he was a kid.
Tommy Boy. Exactly. And I think that's why I think this movie might be better than those. I don't know if I watch all three, which movie would make me laugh the most, but it is just a great movie. Hard 11 out of 11.
So what's the rating on this movie? Is it PG or PG-13?
I will tell you right now, I believe it was PG, and also realized it got crushed by Rotten Tomatoes. It's like a 43%. I do know that. I did see that. Let me just see on IMDb what they say.
Yeah, I think it might be PG-13. It is PG-13.
PG-13, you're right.
So this would be the first, if I were to have kids one day, this would probably be my first introduction to a more adult film. Like I'd let a 10-year-old watch this movie comfortably. Oh, yeah. Like there's not they wouldn't understand unless they found out their body is a wonderland earlier on. They wouldn't really understand that scene. And the rest of it is the kind of comedy that I condone as just like good old fashioned family fun for the whole fam. Like this was if we were to poll my individual family, nobody probably cares about this, but this would probably be panned as the fan favorite in the Delaney universe. Even my aunt, when I posted this on Instagram, she liked the post. And for her to like one of the social media things I do that's about, our podcast is a step in the right direction for her to it's a blanket statement that my whole family loves this movie.
It really is. And when you think about for all the Lauren Michael movies too, he obviously produced basically everything that had something to do with the either a Saturday Night Live character or Saturday Night Live guys, Coneheads, Wayne's World. This probably Wayne's World is really good, especially the music fan of me who loves that movie. But this movie is just so superior, I think. And obviously it will take some time. I'll have to rewatch and see some of these movies again, but it's just really, really well done. This movie is just so fun to watch. Great rewatch.
Another fun fact, before they cast the Cable Guy, the original pairing they had for that movie instead of the vanilla donut that is, what's his name? The vanilla tapioca pudding guy there.
Which one?
The guy who plays, not Jim Carrey, obviously, the other guy.
Jeff Daniels?
Matthew Broderick.
Oh.
Cable Guy. Oh, the original pairing that they thought of for that movie was going to be Chris Farley and David Spade. Would have been a completely different movie.
Oh yeah, and honestly, I'm happy it didn't happen in a way.
But Matthew Broderick is a little bit better looking, so you can see him pulling the hotter chick, and Jim Carrey fits that awkward friend more. Oh. Chris Farley, you would have had a hard time having that evilness to him because I don't think he could ever pull off Evil Bull because he's too jubilant. His whole thing is how joyful is this guy? He's just a lovable guy from the moment, from go.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, he is by far, I think the legacy also of this movie is he is the most likable, lovable character in any comedy, maybe ever. And it'll take me a little bit of time, but there's not a moment where you're like, oh, God dang it, Tommy, you really made a mistake, or you're such a moron. You see the growth, you relate to him because we've all been in that position. And especially, even if you haven't been in a position where you're trying to take over your father's company, he is not pompous. He knows he's an idiot. He knows he needs to grow, and he has that aid with Richard. So it's just a great, great movie.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. That would be a good topic for a podcast. Well, who is the most likable leading man in a comedy? I like Paul Rudd in Role Models, but he's kind of a dick, and I just relate to him because he's such a dick in that movie. I'm trying to think of other super likable guys. Jonah Hill can be kind of a dick and super bad.
Oh, totally. He's not relatable. He's relatable because you were young at one time, but he's a complete douche.
What's his name in Pineapple Express is phenomenal. The drug dealer.
No, but those guys aren't the most relate or would you say relatable, likable? What are we going with that?
I would say likable.
Yeah.
But he's the co-lead. What's his name? The handsome dude there.
His brother was in, oh God, don't do this to me. I can see his face. He was in Why Me? He was in all these movies.
We're idiots.
The Interview.
We're fucking idiots.
Oh, listen, it was at the almost ending point. I didn't think we were going to start breaking down other people's films.
Yeah.
That's what the comments are supposed to be for in there. All right, people watch it. Damn it, you know who we're talking about. Anyway, so what I would say, Bill, one thing I was thinking about, and as we kind of wrap up with Tommy Boy,
James Franco.
Boom. Boy, that's embarrassing. We'll edit that in post. But yeah, I just think at the end of the day, like you said, there's so many different things. But I think Tommy, it's gonna be hard to outrank Tommy Boy because I think Billy Madison, and you're like, no, he was such a douche in some of the moments in that movie. He's a real dink. He really is an ass. Wayne from Wayne's World could be up there. He doesn't do a lot of bad things. He's just kind of
a shitty boyfriend though. He's kind of jealous.
Oh yeah, but I think he's also dating a rock star at the time. It's not like he's dating a
Tia
regular
Carrera,
chick.
who, when I rewatched that, is
prime.
Still hot as ever. And I believe that's also her singing. So to add that to her soft porn career too, the Cinemax era,
a couple
Tia
Showtime
Carrera,
movies. Yeah,
that is just the uber talented dude. She's just beautiful. And she's awesome in that movie. The chemistry between them is awesome. But yeah, I think Chris Farley is the most relatable, likable, whatever you want to call it, leading comedy actor.
Save it. We'll save it. Maybe he's not. I'll just kind of drop the rest of my load here on you of stuff that I noticed in this movie. I would say some of the quotes. Let's just run through the quotes. We had "son of a," and I love how there's the "son of a," or sometimes it was the "oh son of a." We also had "holy shnikes." Come on, we barely even mentioned. By the way, it's the name of the damn DVD. It's a "holy shnikes" edition.
I think I was so obsessed with this movie as a kid that me and my sister, or my sister and I don't know why I'm getting into grammar right now, but remember those old banners that you would print with the circles on the perforated circles on the edges? Yes. We printed out for some reason a "holy shnikes" banner because that's how much we like this movie.
The quote is "holy shnikes," yet this is the "holy shnike edition."
Ooh.
Anyways, some of the other one was.
I mean, there's a million. I think we've already nailed.
I know, but I'm trying to think. Oh, the "quit playing with your dinghy." That's another one of my favorites when he's talking with her. He's like, "Oh,
quit playing with your dinghy."
I can hear you getting fatter when he's eating the ketchup. Just straight out of the thing. Also, that's another great thing.
Watch your language when you're talking to the lady. I'll come over there and jam it over up your ass. You better pray to the God of skinny punks that this wind doesn't pick up. I mean, every line after line is just perfect.
And the butcher T-bone, like I don't even know which version I like.
You got a good look at a bull's ass, but sticking your head on a butcher's ass. No, it's got to be your bull. Like,
that's just great. It's just fantastic.
They could sell a ketchup popsicle to a woman in white gloves. I mean, everything that they do, even that, like that little storyline of him not being able to get what his dad got right, and he 10 whiskey sours, and I could still sell the guy cold. And then it takes Tommy forever to get to the end, and then he finally gets it with his whole analogy with the.
And he goes, "Ooh, yeah." One of the other great things that I found out was the scene where he does the horrible pitch when he's like, "Now here's our," with the.
Oh wait, this is the. You know what? We skipped this. This might be the best scene in the whole movie. Here comes the meat wagon. New guy's in the corner puking his guts out.
Just because you want to save a few bucks. And so they said that was also completely ad-libbed by Chris Farley. The only thing that they played it out a couple times and they acted with their lines, or then he just basically scrapped it, started ad-libbing. The only thing they added was they needed to light the fire on the car because he lights it. Oh my God. And so they said, stop the scene.
Oh my God. Which I do to this day still.
So he's like, let's light this thing on fire, and then you can finish the scene. So basically ad-libbed, then they rewrote it, put it in there, and I love hearing stuff. The other funny thing
Here comes the meat wagon.
And then I just have Richard that whole scene just like, oh God. The other part that I thought was really interesting note about this was Rob Lowe, obviously heartthrob coming into this. He came up with the cow tipping scene. They were just going to have like a pivot scene. I forget what it was, but Rob.
You got to put your head between the gutter and the udder and the hock.
And then that's like when he slips and he just walks away from him. The cow steps on him. They said that was completely Rob Lowe, saying that was something that was big in the country where he grew up. And then the one other funny note about this behind the scenes, Chris Farley, first day of shooting, had the flu. And so he was like, I got to go to bed early. And David Spade showed up. He met up with Rob Lowe. Obviously, this is David Spade in 1994 when they filmed this. Chris Farley in 94. Rob Lowe at 94 is this big heartthrob, this big sex symbol. And David Spade's like, I got to get together with that guy. So Rob Lowe shows up. He's like, oh, you want to grab a drink? The two of them have drinks. Chris Farley, the next day, finds out about this, completely flips out on David Spade. Like, why didn't you call me? Oh, we're going to be hanging out with Rob Lowe because these guys are like brother friends at this point. And David Spade was like, you said you were sick. But he's like, in the back of my mind, I knew I wanted to hang with Rob alone and maybe pick up some chicks. Who knows if he did or not. But to circle back to one last thing you said about David Spade and chicks, every time he's in a movie, and I know like Matthew Broderick might be better looking, he's always with hot chicks. Like,
well, I think always. Mac and Goo were gonna do something about like the dorkiest guy that's like cool or something. I forget how they phrased it, but like guy who outkicked his coverage. David Spade through his career has outkicked his coverage quite well.
Yeah, that's what happens when your friends make your movies. Like Adam Sandler, this latest, I don't know if you saw The Wrong Missy yet. Fun watch, not an incredible movie, but definitely fun to watch. But he's like, Molly Sims is in it. The goofy girl that's in this movie is insanely funny. Very Jim Carrey-esque. But then like, there's Sarah Chalk is in it. There's like a three-way scene. It's just like insane, some of the stuff. And it's like, this dude is like, he also looks like he's not aged. Like he's aged in the face, but like his hair, everything's great. And that's a whole other part of Tommy Boy where his hair is fake. You find out. He's like, don't tell anyone. That's another great scene.
So, like, the dude Fisher Stevens dated Michelle Pfeiffer, and I think that David Spade dating Heather Locklear is the higher outkick the coverage type of person.
Oh, in real life, yeah.
In real life, yeah. That is just unbelievable. And shout out to Wayne's World. They reference Heather Locklear, and she's in, I believe, the second movie.
Swing. Oh, she is. Yeah, great movie. But Tommy Boy, again, what this was all about, both of us giving it 11 out of 11s. Go buy it, honestly. Like, I don't know how much DVDs, if you want to own one of these, or like Billy did, buy it digitally.
On Amazon. It probably comes with the extra scenes. A lot of Amazon things do.
I'm sure. It is worth the money, because even if you watch it twice, think about all the crap you've gone to the movies and all that stuff, especially in the time we're living in now. Forget about Trolls World Tour. Kiss my ass. Go get yourself Tommy Boy for half the cost, and 10 times more fun. I
think I would make this like, you know how some people have like odd Christmas traditions? I would make this like my Christmas movie that I watch with my family around Christmas. Like, this is just a great, like once your kids reach the age of like 10 or 11, you could watch this with them 100 times.
Yeah, I guess I would argue the one thing it's missing, and I know this is weird, because there's also a lot of references to, like, people think like Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, because it has that. That movie, obviously very sad, by the way, but that movie is, kind of revolves around Thanksgiving. That's the one thing. If this movie could have tied in a time of year, 4th of July, Arbor Day, I'm just throwing out something, even if they just mentioned it, just so we can get, like, Gremlins to me, I watch around every Christmas, because it happens at Christmas. It's a goddamn Christmas movie. That's how things work. And so for me, this would be great if I had that. If it said, it took place on this day, I would watch it.
Yeah, I don't think it needs it. I think that's what makes it so special. Like,
of course, it doesn't need it. But
people say that Die Hard can happen at any time. No, he's coming home to see his kids at Christmas. You can all eat a D. But that's an old dumb debate. But I love the fact that this movie is just, from the get-go, a perfectly watchable, just brilliant movie.
Fun movie. We had fun watching it. We had fun tonight doing this with you guys. Don't forget, we've really got to start plugging ourselves in the middle of these again. I got to put reminders.
Or the top.
Yeah, well, no, right when we hit a peak, usually somewhere in this, and we'll talk about that with the analytics another day. But we are at Pop Culture PD on Twitter. You can follow along with Billy at BillyD2411. You can follow me at Jason D. Rossi. Don't forget to hit subscribe if you watch this. If you're watching this on a rerun or however you're catching this, please hit subscribe. Hit that bell for notifications. Honestly, the subscribe will go so far to us. You probably subscribe to a bunch of other channels. You may catch, you may not. Like Billy said, we're going to be developing some shorter content as the months go on. We're just really kicking off this section of things. There'll be more content when it comes to music, wrestling, movies, TV shows. Whatever you want, we're going to give it to you, and we're going to give it to you good. We'll tell
Jordan Knight style, we're going to give it to you.
Oh, man. That song slaps, too. That is... plenty of music stuff we're going to get to. There might be breakdowns of music. There may be top 11 lists.
Drafts.
Drafts. Well, actually, I have an idea for you, Bill, and I was going to talk about this off air, but this can be edited out of the podcast itself. I was thinking next week, a 90s band tier list, and the visual can work because there's a website that I found. You can make tier lists while we're talking like this.
All right. I like it. I still want to draft the perfect music group.
That's going to happen. That's a whole nother idea. I just think this is something simple. Maybe we can add some of the people. We're developing some stuff, adding some people to the repertoire. So thank you guys again so much for watching us. Thanks for following along. Again, it's at Pop Culture PD on your old Twitter machine. That we're just growing, trying to get as many people over there. Please give us a follow. Really appreciate it. Goes a long way. Again, subscribe to our YouTube channel here. Any other plugs? Am I missing any? Oh, so the podcast itself. You can subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher.
SoundCloud. Podomatic. Did I say SoundCloud?
SoundCloud.
Yeah. Let's do a rap. Let's do a rap. We can do a rap.
You want to rap?
Yeah, well, not now, but we can. I could freestyle some of you.
We'll have a musical episode sooner or later. That is the one thing. This is just the shoot the crap part of the episode. When I was doing almost 15 years ago, I was doing a radio show podcast, TV guy, and it was me and Frank, and I was writing a musical at one point. It was whenever the Scrubs musical came out, whatever year that was when I was writing it. Didn't get to it.
Yeah, that's like how about that novel you've been working on?
Honestly, there's a lot of stuff I've been working on, Bill. You know more than most.
How about that novel?
How about the novel? You're going to be coming out? Anyway, again, he is Billy D. Great work tonight. This is a lot of fun. Like I think we both, like we said, both gave it a hard 11. Tommy Boy, great ass movie. Go watch it. We'll be back next week with another stream. There'll be some more content coming to those podcast channels. Give us a thumbs up. Give us a like. Appreciate you all. Frank says hi.